that wasn't actually, but in my opinion, that wasn't about the vaccine at all. That was government saying, you mess with us, look, we've got all the power in the world and you don't have any rights. We can do whatever we want.
And the thing that really astounded me about that is everyone's whinging Dan Andrews is a blah, 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 dickhead. And then they vote him back in.
Yeah, but,
it's like,
but
hang on a minute.
Anastasia Palaszczuk, you guys voted her back in too.
Hang on.
The LNP weren't that good.
Oh, look, I think I'd vote for anyone but her.
But regarding the Victorians, I mean, you know, we can that's a low-hanging fruit for that. When the voice came around, they clearly voted no.
Yes, they did.
Because there was a clear definition between the opposition and the actual proposition being put forward. And the problem was with the Victorian election, I have to say this because I don't want the Victorians to be demoralised. They're about to go into a local election right now. Your vote still counts. It counted in the referendum. The problem in the state election was you didn't have Liberals that were Liberals. You didn't have like the Alex Antics of the world from South Australia or the Nick Goyrans of the world like in WA. And to make matters worse, the minor parties, there were 9 of them. And they basically had the same values. And they were all fighting over 15% of the vote. But whereas when you had a clear proposal, yes or no on a proposal that Anthony Albanese was putting forward, it was like, no worries, you guys voted 55% no. And that's the importance of that. So you still have your vote, but I'm sorry, I have to play the morale game.
But we were talking about this before the show.
Yeah, we were too.
That if you really want your vote to count, start defunding the majors. Right? Totally start defunding the majors. And your vote is worth money. And the major parties rely on this money to keep their machine going. They take loans out against it. Right, they actually go out and get loans saying that our primary vote's going to be this. At some point in time, those loans are going to stop because the primary vote's dropping. So let's drop their primary vote way, way down and then put the money in the hands of people that really want to make a change. You know, there's a voting strategy out there that we can do that will solve a lot of this problem. We'll get rid of a lot of this gender stuff, get rid of a lot of the thing, because the majors will start going, hang on, I've got to be careful here because I'm not going to get my money and it's going to make it hard and we've actually got to blah, 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 blah. Then, so if you vote for your Freedom Party, right, of course it'll flow to a major eventually, right, but if you get your major party that you want to vote for, your Freedom Party, over 4% of the vote, they will get the money, not the majors.
That's right.
Right? So that's going to make it a more level playing field, right, for all the minor parties to get together. Now, minor party people out there, stop being fucking stupid and start working together and merging.
Amen.
Right? Start getting out and driving a strategy. Run people in 152 fucking federal seats. Get out there and play politics the way the majors do. Stop being fucking idiots. Right? Rant over.
I can't talk like that. And that's the thing. I can't talk like that because, you know, I'm young, up-and-coming guy. It's just arrogance. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Thank you.
He's an old has-been.
No, but you know, I'm an old has-been, mate. I've been in the political world for ages.
Wisdom and respect, you know. And this is the problem, you know. I see so many people, I rub shoulders with these candidates, with these volunteers, with these voters in our community, and they're saying the same things. So thank you for articulating that, because it's frustrating, because it's like these minor parties, and you guys have seen the policy matrix. You got a sea of green for all the yes things that they agree on with regards to the minor right parties, the freedom parties. They all agree on the same policies if you break it down. Whereas they've got a sea of red, all these things that they don't agree on with the majors, yet they're split. So they're double handling. They're double handling at the same booths. You've got UAP people against libertarians, against One Nation people, rather than working together synergetically. And that's why, I mean, you guys should be members of parties. I'm not a member of parties, so I can be neutral, so I can help mobilise them and bring them together. But it's a great point. They need to work together. They need to defund the majors.
Politics is war, right? If you look at it, politics is war. There is strategy, right, that you need to do, and you've got an objective, right? Get over the hill and win. None of the minor parties are actually playing to win. They're playing to get elected, and that's a different story. You've got to play to win.
Because then they do have some power when they need crossbench support.
But you've got stuff all power. Having one senator, yeah, okay, that's good. Having 10 people in the lower house, that's way better.
Power.
That's power.
Yeah.
Right? Now, minor party presidents out there, listen up. Stop focusing on the fucking Senate and start focusing on councils. Councils are where the power is. The Greens are killing us in the councils. They're taking over, right? They're putting shit policies in place. They're getting name ID and recognition. And then they are working up the ladder and becoming state MPs, federal MPs, senators. Start playing at the council level.
100%. And you know what?
Playing at all levels.
100%.
All
And,
levels.
all levels.
and the Libertarians, they've been doing that at a local level. They've
Yeah.
gotten something like 9 to 15 elected in New South Wales. But
I fear, though, when the Liberals get their shit together, and by fuck, they really fucked up this time, right? And everyone in the Liberal Party should resign immediately at the council, like the federal, the executive level, because that was just bullshit.
yeah.
The problem there is voters will go back to what they know. So what we need is actually don't resign in New South Wales. Stay there for the next council election and fuck that up as well, because then the Libertarians will be entrenched. The problem is at the next election, the Libertarians will lose again unless they really, really get their name IDs up.
Exactly, and that means they need to learn from the Greens. They need to learn from, in the UK, and this is the approach. This is the gold standard from Mr. Nigel Farage, Mr. Brexit. He's the Trump of the UK. He just finished over the weekend his conference. This isn't a part of our topic for the day, but he was showing that, okay, we've signed up 80,000 members. In fact, on the day of the conference, he signed up another 2,000.
4,000 in 17 hours they signed up.
It's nuts. It's the second most they've gotten.
Yep.
They have established 260 party branches, local groups that meet regularly, that have a proper structure. They've set up in just 2 months, by the way. They're preparing for local elections in May 2025 because they understand they got more votes than the Liberal Democrat Party over there. In the UK, the Liberal Democrats, they're sort of like the Greens. They're way left-wing. They're not like our ones. And the Liberal Democrats got less votes than Nigel's party. Nigel got 4 million votes and only 5 MPs elected. They got less than 4 million, just under, and they got almost 100, like 90 MPs, something crazy, because they know how to build a connection to their constituency. They know, and that's what the Libertarians need to do now. They need to set up more branches. They need to build up more, demonstrate to your community, find local issues, find an unpopular development that everyone opposes and be the voice for people, or a road extension or whatever. And I'm not telling you to adopt values that aren't your own. I'm saying don't talk freedom, freedom, freedom. It's irrelevant to local council. It's irrelevant. But you do have things like approvals, for example, at a council level that you can push. Focus on those things. Grow the pie of voters. But look, I've got to get you back again soon to specifically talk on that when you launch, which we won't go into.
We won't go into, yeah.
But when you launch what you launch. But Nigel is setting the gold standard of this, and the major parties over there are shaking in their boots. Yeah. And that's what needs to happen here.
Well, the quirks of the UK system, I think that was so unfair. The way that comes out, that they've got to fix that. But I will just say, I think I said this last time I was here, or I said it recently. One thing that I'll take away from that is that the world is not going as left as what I think many of us are worried about. Because you have a look at Australia, Albo got in with a third of the vote. You have a look at Keir Starmer. Okay, he was always going to win this. The Tories have been there for a long time, and they've absolutely screwed up and let a lot of people down. But the country didn't actually move that far to the left in that last election. And you'll notice that. So I think, again, I sort of come back to what is with the politicians, the political parties of our countries acting like they've got a mandate for things that they don't have a mandate for. Stop it. If you respect democracy, you respect the people that you're supposed to lead, stop it. And if you don't respect us, then get out.
Yeah.
Let somebody else go.
It was like we've mentioned this on the show already, that we're supposed to be governed by the majority. Stop governing for the minority, right? This trying to ram through the voice, through the back door, through all sorts of other legislation and crap. Stop it.
Yeah. Well,
we didn't vote for it.
What they're doing now, after a resounding no from every state, ignore ACT for a minute, every state and territory has said no, and now state Labor parties are out there going, oh, okay, well, we'll just do it at the state level. Is there a part of no you didn't understand?
Yeah, I thought you believed in consent.
Yeah.
Well, but it's not just the Labor Party that behind treaty and truth and all that. It's the LNP. In Queensland, the LNP is saying that they're for truth. Here in New South Wales, they're for it. It's like, well, hang on a minute.
It makes me homicidal.
You know, the majors are two sides of the one coin, right? And
Two
cheeks
cheeks
at the same
arse.
time.
Or two cheeks. But if you have a look at a coin has three sides, right? It doesn't have two, it has three. It has 1, 2, and then the edge, right? All of us that have a brain, right, and aren't fucking sheep and stupid, we sit on the edge, right? But the majority, all they see is the two sides, and they're identical. The matrix, the turning point that you guys have put out.
Policy matrix, yeah.
I'm sitting there in the thing looking at it going, holy fuck, I knew it was close to how close they are. I think there's one thing between the Liberals and Labor.
I was horrified
like,
when I
holy
first
fucking shit, that's not the party that I grew up in.
when Joel started showing me some of this stuff, I was horrified. But even if you go back to the great Labor leaders of the past, right, like Bob Hawke, for example. Okay, I was a bit young when he was the Prime Minister, but okay, he has a good legacy. Now, you may not agree with everything he did. I know that people don't agree with some of the things that Gough Whitlam did. I don't think he should have been sacked, but it's a whole different story. But have a look at what he did when he wanted to change our anthem, right? And I'm so glad he did, because I think that it's offensive that the God Save the Queen, or now the King. That's not a national anthem. That's a prayer for one person. But I'll leave my republicanism aside for a minute. What did Bob Hawke do? He didn't just, I'll just sign it into the... They had a plebiscite or referendum.
Yep, they took it to the people.
Gave it to the people. So all this trans stuff, you want to have the national curriculum. During the plebiscite on gay marriage, a lot of these issues were brought up and everybody was silenced. No, we're only talking about marriage. We're only talking about marriage. We're not talking about changes to the school system. We're not talking about changes to religious blah, blah. And then what do? Bang, they passed it immediately. It was the second thing they passed in Parliament that day, would change the school system from memory, right? So if you're going to do that, if you want to have it taught in schools that gender doesn't exist and you can change them and all that sort of stuff, have the decency to ask Australians first. Have a referendum on it first. If you think that Australians actually secretly support the massive increase in migration to this country, ask them, right? Mm-hmm. Like Switzerland does, with a more direct democracy. Yeah. One thing I'd love to actually see is when you go to vote, and you actually have the policies, so you can say yes or no to each.
Same as like they do in the US. You vote on article,
great.
Whatever it
There's
is.
like 10 of them, 10 different direct democracy sort of,
Yeah.
I feel like we need to start maybe asking for, especially because, okay, I'm a republic. I think that we will become a republic at some point. But
of course
prior to that happening, I think we, the people, need to start demanding reform to the political process so that what the people want is actually respected by the politicians.
Yeah. Citizen-initiated referendums, if you guys want the official term. I think it's great.
I think we should do that. Recall elections.
Yeah,
I think we should have the ability to do a recall election. If
Albo would be gone, and this comment will be censored for future.
Oh mate, I'm gone. I'm gone.
Podcast is gone.
You're going to find me. They're going to grab me, lock me up, and they'll put me on a small island in the middle of the Atlantic or something. Get rid of him off the air.
Yeah.
Because what we need is the people to take back control. But our current government structure doesn't allow it. Right. Our politicians really don't listen.
Yeah.
Like they say they listen, but they don't. They're doing it to get re-elected. Like there's how many politicians would be in Parliament, and I haven't done the numbers for a while, that they're on what, a $250,000 a year gig, 250 with all the
300.
Or 300.
Yeah, depending on the amount of committees. And
committees and stuff they're on.
400.
Yeah. But if they were to go back into into private life, they'd be on what, 70 grand a year. No one would give a shit that they existed.
Useless.
They'd probably be the ones living in the tents.
Just to clarify, when they do go back into private life, right, they end up in high-paying jobs. But why? Because of their political contacts.
True.
Right?
True.
So
they
it's not
milk the
about
system.
exactly. It's not about raw talent.
That's right.
Not at all.
Scott Morrison for his acumen in the defence industry.
Yeah.
You know, he gets set up with an organisation, a company that he set up with AUKUS. I mean,
Christopher
like you can at
Pine
least
is
hide
working.
it. You know,
Christopher Pine went to the thing, and good old defence, and good old Bob Carr. Again, correct me if I'm wrong here, right? But didn't he end up on a $500,000 a year job working for the same company that built the M5?
Yeah, yeah.
I was in high school
They
when
all
that
end up
happened.
with directorships.
Oh, just he was getting something like $50,000 a month, and all he had to do was go to one meeting every month, like 12 meetings a year, and he actually missed a few, but he was still getting his $50,000 a month.
some Hunter Biden stuff right there.
Oh, yeah.
Can I mention?
To be fair to Hunter, at least he got himself many millions of dollars. I mean, he did well.
Yeah.
He did well.
But that's the other problem is, right, we talk about how corrupt the system is. Our politicians do it for a $4,000 electoral donation.
So
right?
cheap.
And we're way too cheap. At least in the US, they're doing it for $1 billion book deal or something. Right?
Land of opportunity.
Our guys are just, you're too cheap. Right.
Yeah, they definitely sell themselves short.
Sure.
Guys, we mentioned the policy matrix a few times. I just wanted to briefly bring it up. If you could blow that up even bigger, because it's very detailed. We do these every election. Rami, if you could make it full size. It actually goes through 7 different categories, generally speaking: ethics, environment, and climate change, public health and well-being, education, economics, and reviving the economy, democracy. This is one we did for the New South Wales election. And when I say a sea of green, so we state the questions in a way that we agree with. So whoever says yes is generally in agree with me, with Turning Point Australia, with our principles as conservative, Christian, libertarian, as an entity. So you can see with those 4 freedom parties that ran, there's a sea of agreement. And that's where Stephen was rightly pointing out they ought to be together. But interestingly, it shows you that the Liberals are just another butt cheek on the same butt. And they're basically identical to Labor, except for maybe 2 policies. And that's the problem. That's why we do what we do, so that you guys have information in your hands. And when you scan that QR code at the election, which we will do for the federal election and the Queensland election coming up, it actually tells you who to vote for in your area that actually are of those values and are from those freedom parties and are people of conviction. And by the way, there are some good Liberals, of course, people like Antic and Rennick that were kicked out. But the point is, we take a scalpel to this issue. We try to solve that. We try to give you more information and transparency in the political process. So that was what we're referring to.
Yeah, that is a fantastic thing. And people should be studying that sort of stuff all the time, because it opens your eyes. Right? We all tend to know that the majors are pretty much similar. But then when you see it in graphic form like that, you go, holy shit, there is a big divide between the freedom parties and the majors.
And you know what's funny? I didn't even make it up. I literally, the way it works is we come up with the questions, we send it to all the parties that are running that are relevant to our audience. They send us the answers back. We cross-check it with their track record and manifesto, and then we put it in an easy form for people to see, and that's, it's very effective.
Because one of the things that really annoys me with a lot of our current politicians and senators of the major parties is they're all big talkers when they're on Sky News or on the ABC or wherever, but their voting record is 100% different. 100% different. And they don't put private members' bills in. Every member of parliament can put a private members' bill in, right? If you're against your party, put a private members' bill in and try and change it. Don't mouth, right? And they all mouth to get the sound bites. None of them actually do anything in parliament, right? So I've lost so much respect for so many of the so-called freedom fighters within our major parties that I turn them off now if I ever see them, even on Sky News. Like, you just go, you're just full of shit, mate.
Yeah, it's parasitic,
but I think it is good
parasitic.
that so many people, including people on the left, by the way. I don't know if there's a keep going in the same bullshit direction, Australia. Instead of Turning Point, Australia. But even they are frustrated with government.
Yeah,
right.
100%.
So
that's all I'm going to use to keep going. Yeah, I think it's called Toilet Paper Australia.
Something like that. But yeah, I was thinking, I've always said this for a few years now, it'd be lovely to see them have their policies out like they did in the referendum, the yes campaign, the no campaign. But if they did that, it'd be like the Labor Party says this, and the Liberal Party, we agree. Yeah. That's what you'd end up with if you try to ask them what the differences are between their policies.
And we alluded to that with the misinfo bill. It's like, you got the Greens saying you got to go harder, and then you got the, I actually have more agreement with the Greens, actually, now that I look at it, compared to the Liberal Party.
I always knew you were a turncoat.
Yeah, no, but hey, you know what?
What's a turncoat?
But you know what? I know that they believe what they're saying.
Yeah.
I trust them in that. They're authentically idiotic, and that's okay.
Yeah.
You can do that in a free country, but don't lie to me.
If you have a look at politics, and there's pretty much only really 20 countries in the world that are doing this cultural wars stuff. Everyone else, and mind you, that's only about 1 billion people out of 8.5 billion people, right? The other 7.5 billion people are going there. You're a group of bunch of fucking morons. I'm just going to make money and keep going, and their countries. And if you have a look, people, their countries are doing very well. Very,
if you want real freedom, you go to the former Soviet countries of Europe.
Georgia,
Estonia, 5,000% growth in Georgia.
Romania.
You go to these countries because their governments, not only would they not do it, they would deliberately, specifically not do some of the things because they know what they just came from. They hate that sort of stuff.
That's right.
And we sit here in the West and we go, look, we defeated socialism and communism, right? So now what we need is more socialism and communism.
And if you have a look at the political state, so take the UK, right? The Tories and Labor in the UK are both left parties. Kamala Harris and Donald Trump are both Democrats. Donald Trump is a Democrat, people. Look at everyone that he's aligning with. RFK, Democrat. Tulsi Gabbard, Democrat.
Tulsi.
What's the other fool he's just put with him?
There's three of them.
There's three of them.
Vivek.
Vivek.
They're all Democrats, right? So you got this slide in our political stuff. Then you have a look at Australia, the Liberals and Labor, basically both left parties. Yeah. Now you have a look in New Zealand, right? Even
start on bloody New Zealand,
right? The both major parties are basically left. Of where tradition is. Australia, the West, the Western nations do best when we are centre right.
But
not left.
But just to come back to Trump, though, for a minute, though, because I think that what's actually happening is that the so-called left parties have gone so far left, too have the right parties.
Yeah.
But what's happened is that the left parties talk about it, right? And everyone else is like, wait, you want to put our children on puberty blockers? So the right parties don't. What's happening in reality, they don't do what they say. But you're right. You're seeing a lot of people who I think are frustrated, so they talk about it. We just need to change the system.
Yeah.
Right.
But the problem is we don't have a major party problem in any of the Western world. We have a fuckwit voter problem, right? Us. Because we keep showing up at the ballot box and voting for the same idiots. Change your mind, right? Literally, change your mind. Do something different. Was it Albert Einstein said doing the same thing over and over again is insanity?
Definition, yeah.
Definitely. That's what we've got. We've got a voter base that are insane.
No. Yeah, but if you are going to take the minor parties, which I've been doing the last handful of elections, I do think that you need to put your preferences for one of those two majors because it's eventually going to go to the right.
You've got to.
So you have to do that.
Yeah, you've got to.
And unfortunately, what choice do you have? You kind of have to go with the so-called centre-right.
But defund them on the way through.
That's
exactly.
Right. Yeah,
defund the majors on the way through and make them change.
Yeah.
Because money rules, right? What did they say? Money talks and bullshit walks. That's exactly what we've got in politics. And by defunding them, us, instead of being idiot voters and fuckwit voters, and I'll put my hand up, I was for a long time, I was a sheep. I went and,
Like you were in New Zealand for a bit, were you?
Yeah, I was in New Zealand. and that, but we've got to change. I hallelujah, found the light. And
I found the bloody light. I went overseas and took away
100%
the tax revenue that they would have taken off me.
Yep.
Right? Hit them right where it bloody hurts, mate.
Yeah.
I don't live here anymore. I'm still a citizen. I'm not a resident here. I spend as much time as I can overseas.
Yeah.
And you know what? I could live in cheaper countries than the ones that I do, but cheaper as in I could keep more of my money. But I am happy to pay taxes to those countries that have helped me get ahead.
Yeah. And
That's the point, right?
Alluding what we were talking about before, I spent after I got out of the Navy, I spent a big chunk of time travelling around the world, working around the world. And I've now, it was a couple of mentors of mine said, well, instead of whinging about it, pull your finger out of your ass and actually start doing it. So I'm coming back to Australia to fight.
God bless you.
Fight.
No, and thank you. And and that's not the selfish thing to do. There's a lot of young people, we appreciate that when we hear that, because it's like, yeah, look, we know